Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast about all things in AI and software development and mobile development and websites and vibe coding and all sorts of stuff. I'm one of your hosts, James Bontamagno, and with me, as always, the one and only
Frank Krueger?
That's
Question
you.
mark? Hashtag? Yeah.
Or I'm not
agent.
Introducing you. You introduce yourself.
I could just be like some Google Gemini auto-generated persona. I mean, maybe I'm just in your imagination. Maybe I'm from James's imagination. Maybe the cloud manifested me. I don't know.
That's true. That's very true. I will say this, Frank. Just like we put out this podcast every week, I'm sure that you and I have vibe coded at least another whole app in the last week since we've last podcasted. I'm pretty sure.
No, I went the worst route. I started vibe researching instead of vibe coding. And that got weird really fast. So I was looking into the app charts, doing the classic, what makes money these days? What doesn't make money these days? Doing some real business work. And you know what I learned? Vibing is a lot more fun when you're coding than when you're doing research. Because it was all kind of depressing. It said I should create a drawing app or a weather app. And I have no interest in developing either one of those apps. So that research was a complete failure, but I'm starting to think I should vibe code a research app. There we go. Just go full meta.
I like that. The meta-ness of it. No, I think it's been fun. We only just recorded the last podcast like 2 days ago. So I did try to go through quite a few build videos and things like that. Do you have anything new hot since the last hour-long podcast that we recorded on build, or any of the things you want to dive deeper into?
I gotta be honest with you, I have been struggling to program a lawnmower. And this is not just because we were chit-chatting before the episode and James brought up my robotic lawnmower. And the whole time I've been thinking about, like, can I vibe code a lawnmower? But that I haven't been able to successfully do that yet. What I have successfully been able to do is run over literally everything in my yard with a spinning blade on a 60-pound machine with 4-wheel drive. And it's terrifying and exhausting. And I start to wonder, I generally think that I can program anything I want until you attach a 60 RPM blade to a 60-pound robot. Then you start to have doubts about your programming ability. So I haven't vibe coded that, and I haven't had a chance to actually sit down with all the build videos yet because I've been running away from a monster machine.
Wow. Yeah, I've been definitely trying to go through quite a few of them, some more of the MCP stuff, some more of the .NET videos, things like that. Watch a little bit about the .NET run app.cs with Damien. I think he's got a blog coming out tomorrow, which will already be out by the time this is out. But all about it, which you can go and try out. It seemed like the internet reacted crazily in a good, I think, way in general. So, I come from script background, so it makes totally sense to me. And I enjoy that type of vibe, I guess, in general, especially how we talked about it last week. I've spent a lot of time, 2 things that I've learned. 3 things that I've learned. I learned that JavaScript is interesting, and like JavaScript, you just get like you like point in your HTML. It's not web development. You point in your HTML to a random CDN that has a JavaScript file or CSS or fonts, and it like just goes and gets it and runs it. Like that's crazy.
If you're lucky. Have you noticed all the new SSL rules, HTTPS? And by new, I mean, of course, 5 to 10 years old, but neither of us are really serious web developers, so we don't run into this stuff all the time. But for example, if you just want to play a video or something and you just quickly put up like a little HTTP dev server or something, that ain't good enough these days. You got to be HTTPS on everything.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've found that web development's becoming a little less fun in that regard because you actually have to get serious about even your development deployments need to be signed and all that kind of stuff. And then Safari puts up a scary window and all that. I will say it is true, though. You're not installing packages so much as you're just pointing to them now, which is kind of hilarious and fun. So I take your point. It's great.
Yes.
But there's still all these weird security things that technically kick in at some point. But
yeah,
I mean, it's a little confusing when they do and when they don't. And it seems to be per browser for a few things.
Yeah, it's kind of bananas. And then what I've been doing is I've been working on a Blazor WebAssembly app. So things just run 100% in the browser and that's it. So I was like, well, I don't want it to point at this website. In
Mm.
general, I know it'll get it and cache it. Because you have to at least be connected to the internet once. So I was like, I want to put it in in the app, right? I'm all about in the app. So I just download the JavaScript file. I don't know if that's good or not. But then I'm learning about these things called like ES6 modules or something like that. I have
Yeah.
no idea, but Copilot's been rewriting all my JavaScript to be ES6 compliant.
Oh, it's so scary these days when you create a TypeScript project because, well, let's be specific. ECMAScript 6 has its own module system, but then TypeScript has like 12 different module systems that it can output as,
Oh,
and it's all
geez.
done through scary YAML and JSON project configuration files. And if you have half your site using this module system and the other half your site using a different module system, it gets bonkers and gross and weird. Have you learned about script type equals module in your HTML?
Yes, that is exactly what it implemented for me. It did that. Well, because what ended up happening was what you said. This gets me to the other section, but I had the coding agent on GitHub.com implement a a service worker update or alert system for my website. So by default, how progressive web apps works. I created the Blazor WebAssembly app and I said, I also want this to be a progressive web app so you can install it as an app. And then it will update automatically with the service worker to like refresh in the background. The problem is
Cool.
that there's like no standard notification UI for that, like in the browsers or anything. You have to put it in your app.
Hmm.
So you have to link into an event in the service worker that triggers that says, "Hey, I've updated." Like tell the user to refresh the app and refresh the browser and get the app. So it's pretty straightforward. So I had it implement that, but then I ran it and I noticed in the logs because I'm a good developer and I look at the logs, Frank. I look at them. There's a little yellow log that says, "Hey, we see that this thing is using an export, which is not ES6 compliant and may not work in the future." And so like a good developer, I right click, copied the warning, just blindly copied and pasted it into GitHub Copilot. And then it started rewriting things as modules. And I was like, type module. I was like, I don't know what that
Yeah.
means, nor do I care. So then I asked GitHub Copilot, hey, is there anything else that needs to be updated? And then it's like, oh, I can update all your stuff for you. So I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Like, what is it actually? What is it? It's like the type
Oh,
module
it's
thing.
it's confusing. I mean, there's just JavaScript never had a module system before. It didn't even have classes or anything, and so people came up with their own module systems. And
Yeah.
like all good developers, every developer came up with their own module system, and so you just have the plethora of TypeScript options of which kind of module to compile to. These days, like most of the browsers support ES6, so you don't even need
Ah.
to. You can just use
Oh.
the built-in native JavaScript stuff. So your TypeScript modules just look exactly like your JavaScript modules. These days, I don't even use TypeScript anymore. I just don't even see the benefits of it. But there used to be that used to be a big feature of TypeScript was it handled all that module stuff for you.
Oh.
But JavaScript is really advanced as a programming language. It had to. Everyone was building complicated websites with it, so it really did need to up its game, and eventually it has. Did you know you can even create classes with it now? Like it doesn't get all. Yeah, back when I coded, you had to say blah 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 dot prototype dot member equals function. Now they all have nice syntax for that. I actually kind of enjoy it as a development environment these days, but I'm not as advanced as you. I really haven't done the progressive web app with the, what'd you call it, a service worker, something like that.
Service
Now,
worker. Yeah.
I have released npm packages. Do you remember I wrote my own version of Torch, like PyTorch, like doing
Yeah.
ML stuff in the browser. And I tell you, I wanted two different deployment models for that. I wanted the easy one where people can just bake it into their own app and it does what you said, it kind of like compiles into your own app and then you serve it from your own servers. But I also wanted to be on CDNs so people could just point to it on a CDN and all the magic would happen. And then I also wanted tests that ran, and tests needed their own module system and all that stuff. And I'll tell you, I went crazy trying to get all those like different permutations of how I wanted the modules to work in different scenarios. Because you have Node.js running on the server, you have modules running in the client browser, then you have modules on a CDN, and then you have modules when you're just trying to do development and run unit tests and things like that. And boy, you can still get yourself very confused because it all was kind of ad hoc at the time. These days, this year, 2025, it's a bit better, I would say.
Yeah. I'd say that it is all very interesting to me. I'm learning a lot of different things, but like I learned that, and then I learned that like some CSS things that you also put scripts in, like may also like refer to like font files. You need like other script files, but then you download them and you'd be in the same folder. So like I've been really working like really hard to like make this app work hard offline, where it's not the same as just like, again, where I think we're lucky in the world of .NET at least. I mean, obviously this is Blazor, but like in the world of like mobile app dev, it's like it's in the app, right? It's in the
Yeah.
app. It's in the app. It's going to work. And that's what, I don't quite fully understand all the time. But I think what's crazy is, and I understand, like, you put these CDNs, so it gets cached. You only need one version of it. That is kind of nice about the browser. It's not going to install 28,000 versions of, Font Awesome or whatever, or the Blazor WASM that's like fingerprinted or whatever. But I also realized, and this was something that I ran into a lot of problems with, but I'm a big fan with my Blazor applications that they specifically have page name.razor and then also page name.razor.css. So the CSS is separated, kind of like a XAML.cs.
Interesting.
So you can also do razor.cs where your C sharp is in a separate file. I just keep it all in one file because why not? But maybe I'll separate it out. But at some point, and I don't know if it's me or a template or something else scaffolded wrong, but in my feedback flow app, forever, I was always struggling with styling and CSS, and like some things would work, some things wouldn't work, and it looked okay. I was like really struggling, and I'm like, it just doesn't work. It just isn't doing it. I could never get like a modal dialogue to work. I'm like, it just isn't working. And eventually, through deeper research, to your point, I was going and going and going, and I went over to, I think, Claude 4 now, and or Gemini 2.5 Pro, which are very verbose. Gemini is like the most verbose thing in the world, but it was running crazy script files. It was like running. It's looking in this file. It's looking in that file. It's looking over here. It's looking all over the place. And what I found out is that when you set up your Blazor application, it should have name of assembly .styles.css. And what happens is your razor.css file gets compiled into one huge CSS style sheet that gets loaded. And for some reason, that one single link to the CSS was not in my file. And for like 2 months, I've been dealing with this. And then I added it, and my entire app looked 100% different. It was like, I mean, all the CSS. So I think what was happening is like some of the CSS that I was applying in certain files did get based on what it was doing or where it was putting specific CSS. I did have an app.css, but it was putting it somewhere. But then all of a sudden it was like, boom. And it was like the whole world lit up. So I was like, now I can refactor this whole thing. But that was like a huge like enlightenment for me. But beyond just normal web stuff, yeah, I'm learning about progressive web apps for the first time. And they are crazy because progressive web apps, yeah, they don't have this, like, they have this updater. So what the service worker does is basically all browsers, even on your phone, has a service worker. And basically it's a tiny little file. It's a JavaScript file. And what it does is it looks at how to like install an app, activate an app, and fetch new files. So its entire job is to sit there when the app loads up, the website loads up in the offline, app or in the browser, and basically say, what do I have installed? Like, it has a bunch of cached keys, and it goes to the server and says, hey, give me all the new keys. And then it does like a big diff to see if it needs to update stuff, basically.
That's
So
cool.
that's all it's doing, is just sitting there, and it's like, hey, do I have new stuff? Do I have new stuff? Do I have new stuff? And it will only download stuff. But the problem is, if it gets new stuff, it needs to reload the stuff, right? Because it needs to like move things around. So that's where like this little update script goes into effect to do it. But it's very minimal and it's very nice. And then you can style it. It gives you a little app icon and does all the stuff on it, which is very nice. In general, I will say this though. Even though I've been doing all this is for this bingo app that you and I talked about a while ago, Bingo-O-Matic, that I blogged about. Bingo. We're mobile app devs.
Yeah.
So I was telling my neighbor about this bingo app because, funnily enough, she was like, oh, I'm going on this family trip, and I legitimately bought bingo cards. And I downloaded a Bingo app. And then I told her, well, I have this whole thing. It's all customized. You can do custom grid. She's like, well, it's amazing. She's like, I'll uninstall that one. I'll get your app. So I sent her the link to the website. And then she went to the website. She's like, oh, this is really cool. And then like she was like showing me the other app or whatever. And then she's like, oh, where's your app at? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's not an app, right? It's a website.
Yeah.
And it's like,
So,
oh yeah, websites just aren't good enough. They're just not, dang it. And then I was like,
well,
okay, I need to go do progressive web apps. So I did, I showed her how to do the progressive web app. And I was like, oh, I better make that way better. Because once I started learning about progressive web apps, which I never install, I was like, oh, I need to actually put this updater screen and I make it look really good and stylize it and things like that. But I was like, wow, like one, it's not easy to find the progressive web app, especially on mobile. It's like hidden in a menu. Like on Apple, you have to do
hmm
share and then you have to like add to home screen. It's like bananas. But then I think a lot of people are definitely not used to that flow. They're not going to like Google, give me a bingo app. They're going to say, show me a bingo app in the app store, right? They're going to go into the app store, hit bingo. So it was like a huge enlightenment where I worked on this app, which is okay because the app is fine to be in the browser. It's like it's supposed to be on a 16:9 television. I made it for one person, not me, but one person for bingo I go and play at Ben. And I was like, Ben, I'm going to make this app. So I did it. But then I was showing it to them. I was like, this is cool. And then I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, nobody uses this progressive web app stuff.
I feel like we can turn this into an app versus web app episode, but I'll try not. But it's really interesting because we do live in a little bit of a bubble. I know I can like add websites to my home screen, but I just don't. I'm kind of
Yeah.
terrible. If it was an app, I would probably install it and do that. And I feel like in that way, I'm like a typical iOS user, maybe Android user also. That yeah, you just kind of expect apps to be in the App Store because that's where the apps are. And as
Yeah.
someone who makes a living off the App Store, that's still a good thing. I'm glad people are still trained on that. But from a technology standpoint, it is a little bit sad that I'm not sure anyone knows about turning a website into an app. So you could spend all this time perfecting your PWA web app, and maybe you'll get 0 users or 1 user that will actually know to add that to their home screen and take advantage of all your stuff. So it's almost like, in addition to supporting the PWA and saying you got to refresh this thing, you also have to like pop up a thing that says, hey, by the way, you can turn this into a really real app and, and
Yep.
just hit these 3 button combinations to get it there. It's interesting. Web apps aren't perfect yet. Can I tell you about my weirdest dev environment that I've been using lately?
Is it dev containers or what is it?
It's VS Code tunneling. Have you done
Ooh.
VS Code dev tunneling?
Well, this is going to be my new thing because I'm pretty sure I'm going to throw my Mac Mini away and I'm just going to connect to
Oh
it
no.
from my Windows machine through VS Code tunneling. I think that's what I'm going to be. Or what are you tunneling
Okay.
into? Are you tunneling into some cloud machine or what are you doing?
My lawnmower.
Oh my
So
gosh! Oh,
let me
cool.
explain. So I think many episodes ago, I was blown away by the SSH support in VS Code.
Yep.
So in VS Code, you can get the SSH extension, just connect to any random server, and it will install God knows what on that server and launch some kind of service. And then all of a sudden, you can use VS Code to edit files on the server, and everything works wonderful and dandy. And it's great actually. Unless you're running on a Raspberry Pi, moving at 10 miles an hour, again weighing 60 pounds, crashing into things, then things get a little bit weirder. And I just had this idea of like, I wonder if I can just run VS Code like on the Raspberry Pi instead of like trying to do this
Yeah.
SSH thing all the time. Cause it was honestly, my network's pretty flaky. It's a moving Wi Fi. I don't know how many
Yeah.
things you've tried to keep connected to Wi Fi while they're moving at velocity and trimming grass at the same time, but
Yeah.
it's a difficult Wi Fi scenario. So I just started to wonder, like, is there just a version of VS Code I can get and just run that literally on the Raspberry Pi and then just log into it, the way you
Yeah.
would expect? Turns out totally supported. So you can install VS Code on a Linux machine and then enter some god awful commands to open up this tunneling feature. And what that gives you is you're able to go to, I forget the URL off the top of my head, but Microsoft will give you this URL that it's like a vsdev.com URL or something like that. and your little machine will be talking to it, and it forms the bridge. So it becomes like a little bit of a proxy server. I don't
Wow.
even know what terms to use in this case. But the net effect is you're essentially running the VS Code server manually on your little machine. And then the internet is doing the magic that the internet should and makes these two computers actually talk to each other. So, my crazy web development environment is actually me wearing the Vision Pro with a web browser
Oh
open,
my gosh.
tunneling to my Raspberry Pi, running at my lawnmower, which is trying to murder me all the time.
Are you
With
coding on the VSCode.dev, like the website?
I'm literally coding on the VS Code dev website because Microsoft hasn't released a version of VS Code for the Vision Pro. Get on it, Microsoft. So instead, I just open up a web browser tab
Oh,
and go through my little tunnel thing. And I won't say it's the greatest dev experience, but you get a Bluetooth keyboard and you go
wow.
outside and you just start coding away. You know, what's great is you can open multiple windows. So I'll have one web browser that has my telemetry. I'll have another browser that is like my control panel for the robot. I'll have another browser that is the code for the robot. And they're all floating there in real 3D space. I
Yeah.
can walk around, you know, I'm running away from this thing and it's chasing me. And I can turn around and desperately try to click a button saying stop before it murders me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a wonderful dev experience. You know, I was working on cars when I was 16, and it was write some code in C, walk over to the EEPROM flasher, wait 45 minutes, walk down to the car, plug it into the car, boot up the car, everything explodes, and then you go back to the office, rinse and repeat. Now I can do that dev cycle basically instantaneously. There's pros and cons, but because everything's happening through a web interface, it's not a real app. But it's kind of awesome that you're able to just cobble all this stuff together and create such a dangerous and productive dev environment.
That's crazy. Yeah, it I was thinking about that recently because you can basically install VS Code on your Mac, install VS Code on your Windows machine. You can just SSH into that on your local machine, right? And then basically you're coding on your on the device that you're connecting to, right? It's like a dev container, but it's an actual machine on the
Yeah.
network, right? The things are happening on that machine, just like it's happening in the container, right? And then what's cool about that is that that's how the browser works, right? It's just connected to some source. That's why code spaces are so cool. It's just SSHing into something. I assume
Yeah.
it's doing more than that, but it's like in a container, right? It's a code space. So that's like the magic of it. But if you were to go and watch the final end note of Build, it's Scott Anselman, boss, and Mark Rusinovich, and they live coded a robot that they got from Hello. It's like Hello Robot, I think. It's in Seattle. It's a local place in
Okay.
Seattle that does um like research robots and kits that they sell, and they can also 3D print parts and stuff like that. It's really, you would be into it, I think. But they basically, it's this robot that can move, and there's a base that is there. Let me see. I think it's called Hello Robots Seattle.
Okay.
I
So
think
like a
that's
Roomba, but like an indoor little robot guy with wheels.
yeah. I will get you. Yeah, I'll get you the actual robot. Is this it? This is definitely it. Oh, this is definitely. Is it Hello Robot? Oh, this is it. Yes. Hello Robot. Where's the website? Hello Robot. Hello Robot. I'm just gonna type in Hello Robot. Yeah,
Hello, robot.
hello-robot.com.
Yeah. Cool.
Hello-robot.com. The sketch 3. You're gonna love this. I'm gonna type it into the
Okay.
thing. Hello-robot. Okay. I think they're based out of Seattle. That's what he said, because they brought it in. I'm pretty sure they're based out of Seattle. But there's this one with this arm, basically. The sketch 3. It has
Ah,
this arm, it can move, it
excellent.
has eyes, has a bunch of stuff. They were gonna program it with AI to move, rotate, and on demand um, pick up a Diet Coke for Scott and bring it back to
Okay.
him.
That's pretty good. I gotta
But
say, like I've done robots a lot. Picking things up, hard, hard.
yes. So, and they have like cubes and this whole thing. You'll know all the stuff about the robots on the website. But they did it all with like Python and C# and .NET. But the robot is running like a Linux, has like a Linux NUC inside, and they did the same thing. They put VS Code inside of it and SH so they could communicate with it like directly. And they had like a laptop on side of it that was doing something. It was like, and then they had other machines connected to it. So they're like in Ubuntu running this and doing that. And they're all over the place. And it was like bananas, like just kind of such a cool, weird thing when you think about it, but it kind of makes sense because there's this thing that's moving around. You need to talk to it and you need to like program the thing on it and control
Yeah.
it, like, and interface with it. And I was like, wow, this is like crazy, but really cool.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, welcome to the web, everyone. But I like that we're getting like new form factors for the web, but this technology is just persisting. So like, I'm pretty sure no one has used VS Code in the Vision Pro as much as I have at this point. So there's like definite little bugs, scrolling's not perfect, this and that's not perfect, but having like the object in front of you as you're programming is so much better than, because I would try the laptop, but then like the sun is too bright and then you get the hood for the laptop so that you can actually see things. But you put on a VR goggle, it turns down the sun for you so it's not so bright, everything is lit up correctly. In fact, I just sent you a video through the text messaging which should hopefully show you how dangerous all of this is, because you can again put up all your telemetry and
Cool.
just make
Wow.
it all work. Yeah, well, yeah, it's neat. And I will say that the dev tunneling is better than the SSH, mostly from the connectivity, because it seems like with the SSH, it's always like trying to upload the server code to it while it's trying to run, or every time you disconnect, it'll try to reconnect and uh, distribute its server code as it needs to. But instead of doing that, you can just put all that code on the machine and have it run. So just a little ad for VS Code tunneling.
This thing is cutting your grass, dude. Look at it.
Oh, it totally cuts the grass. It's just wonderful. It hasn't cut my foot off yet either. So nice important feature of it.
Does this just have like a huge battery in it?
It's sadly the battery's too small. I keep running into this issue of like when it's trying to go up the hill and cut the grass and it gets stuck
Mm.
in mud. It tries to pull too much power from the battery. The battery enters a safe mode and then it loses power, goes tumbling down the hill with blades still spinning and all that kind of stuff. Even more scary, I was working on a feature where it tracks me based not on vision
Mm.
but just on GPS,
Oh, wow.
and it's kind of fun and scary because you can immediately make it crash into things and chop up bits of the lawn. But it's funny.
It's going off track. It's doing its own thing.
The fun thing is like Copilot is still working in this scenario too. So I'll
Yeah.
be, the robot will be moving and I'll be trying to do live edits. And then I'm relying on the AI more and more because, typing's
Yeah.
not the easiest thing and all that. And it'll be scary because the AI will put in some bad code. And bad code's bad when you're just running it on a machine, on a computer, but bad code on a robot is literally dangerous and
Yeah.
literally surprising. And so I've gotten into like fun, scary scenarios. I love the live coding experience of just
That's
putting code
cool.
on it and letting it run, but then I've really had to learn other tricks and workflows so that it doesn't kill me.
That's cool. Oh, that's neat. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty cool demo. I like it's a good. That's maybe a better use case I've seen in a while. I think is actually having the VS Code.dev up and running. You should do a video on that, probably like coding inside of
Uh,
VR, like for real. Yeah,
yeah, I plan to. I just I had to get good at it first. I hate looking like an idiot in videos, so I wanted to
yeah.
be actually kind of good at it.
You
But
look good all the
that
time. You look good all the time.
thanks, sir. But it's funny, like networking gets kind of tricky because let's say my robot is presenting a web UI and it's obviously running a little web server itself. Because Python's not really good at multi-threading, I have a whole separate process, which is the actual control algorithm for the robot. So I have JavaScript client code, which sends like an HTTP request. I have a web server that gets that HTTP request, opens a Unix domain socket to my actual control software. The
Oh my
actual
gosh.
control software receives that command, processes it, returns a response through the domain socket, which then returns a response through the web server, which then bubbles up to the JavaScript client. And I like to give AI all the credit, but sometimes it just doesn't get my flows, man. Sometimes we're just not vibing together and doesn't understand my three-step approach I'm having to take there. So debugging's not the easiest thing on the planet, but when you get it all working, it's all very fun.
That's cool. I like it. That's a cool little setup you got going. Yeah, I mean, we jest about, developing apps and pushing out apps and doing stuff, but I think for me, I'm having fun learning. Like I feel like learning different pieces and new bits and technologies. I tweeted out about this bingo app, Bingo-O-Matic, and I put out a blog on my personal blog, which I did not write. I did not write that blog. So that's a blog written by GitHub Copilot. So
Oh,
I don't write.
okay. Did you give
Mhm.
credit at the bottom? Do you have a
Uh,
colophon section?
so if you read, so here's the cool part about the blog. So there's a little Easter egg in it, and all for all of our listeners. So it has. I did take the screenshots myself. It doesn't do that yet. But then there's a little thing about behind the scenes, the technical side of Bingo-O-Matic. And then it talks about Blazor WebAssembly, some technical components, and then it's like dev workflows, like VS Code. And then it's like GitHub Copilot Agent Mode. And then it says GitHub Copilot Agent Mode wrote pretty much all the code by providing intelligent code completions and suggestions that understood the context of Blazor components, helping accelerate development while maintaining code quality standards. It created the base app features, added new features, implemented advanced logic and styles, and so much more, including this blog post.
Yeah, I hope everyone
I
makes it
wrote
to
that.
that point to get that joke. Oh,
I,
they
I
didn't
wrote
put that
that.
in there.
I wrote that.
Okay.
I wrote that. No, AI is not that funny. And now I could have, but I wrote that part. So I wrote that last little sentence in there, and
Yeah.
that's what I did. But the rest of it was all good, which was cool. And that was really fun. Actually,
Okay.
like I was like, even when I drafted, I was like, put more URLs in there. I was like, cool, I'll put the URLs in there. Like, just do the thing, and it's like I'm thinking of different use cases, but like you're saying is like it's doing its own thing. You're coding, you're asking it stuff, you're doing deep research, those
Mhm.
those different things. Like I think that's a part of I think there was some comment. I saw a comment on Reddit about like Microsoft Build and AI and stuff. And there was a comment about our podcast.
Oh,
Yeah. It
good
was all
comment.
like,
Nice comment.
it was like, well, it was like something like you can really tell that like, the employees or like the developers at Microsoft are really getting deeper into it. Like if you've listened to James at all on Merge Conflict recently, it's all he's been yapping about. And I would say this, Frank, I do this podcast because I talk about stuff that I'm excited about. And I think that genuinely we both enjoy. Sometimes we conflict on how much we enjoy the things or dislike the things. But I will say that because things are changing and evolving, and I'm now, there was this lull in this podcast in which I was doing not a lot of development in my spare time.
Mhm.
And now I am doing like I've never deployed so many static web apps in my life. I've never done a service worker. I deployed production code in this. I wrote a Swift app. I understand what it's doing. You know what I mean? Like I never
Yeah.
have done that. Like, oh wow. Like because for me to, for example, create a monkey app in Swift, I would have like had to take a lot of time. But now I'm vibing, I'm jamming, I'm asking questions. I don't have to go read a bunch of docs. That was always my hurdle is like, I got to take tutorials. I got to figure out the
Mhm.
structure. Like you can just write the stuff for me and then I understand the stuff and I can iterate and I can write code too. I write some code on occasion, but I feel like I'm genuinely learning a lot of stuff. And that's why I'm excited
It's
about it.
It's funny, unprompted, I was actually thinking about you this morning, and I was thinking, James written more code and more apps in the last month than I've seen him do in probably the last 3 years.
That's
So,
true.
like, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a lull, you just have a different kind of job, so you're not doing day-to-day programming and that kind of stuff. But, we're both technologists, we're both developers, and yeah, we go full in on things, and that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, maybe this bubble will pop, maybe we're overhyping and all that stuff, but it's not overhype if you're actually enjoying it and you're using it and it's making you happy and
Yeah.
you're building silly little tools for bingo and all
Exactly.
that kind of stuff. I didn't mean to call it silly, sorry. My
It is
lawnmower is
no, it
silly.
is it is silly, but it's we always say we build apps for ourselves, and like, well, I'm not a
Mhm.
bingo huge person, but I'm going to find joy in seeing someone use this app. But for example, I was running into this issue. I didn't run into it with static web apps or some of my other sites that I have on Cloudflare, but basically I was running into this issue with my feedback flow app where I bought a domain name. This is my first problem. Bought a domain name.
Yeah.
And I was in app service and I configured both the A record and the C name. Yeah, I can't figure out your DNS server stuff yet, but soon.
I still
Jeez,
can't.
if
Yeah.
it's, for the love of God, somebody write
I've been
that.
doing
I'll
this
pay
since
you
the
money.
90s, man.
Hanselman tried to explain DNS to me. I'm like, dude, I do not care. I just put it in Cloudflare. I don't care if it's hacky or not. Just like, it's just going to work. And he's like, but it does this, does this. Like, if I keep going until it works, and then it works. But I was running into this issue, which is basically different like aliases or roots, right? Which is like your website can run on, www.proclarum.org or proclarum.org. You can just set it up so both of those work, but there's other implications to that too. You kind of always want to pick one, in my opinion. I don't know. That's just me. Like, usually I always have it like just redirect to the www dot or chop it off basically, it doesn't matter. I spent today, and the reason I had this issue is actually because the browser cache layer looks at the URL domain name, like the root, I think, and like the local cache wasn't caching it if you typed in www or non-www.
Oh, that's annoying.
That seems like a browser
Yeah.
bug in my opinion, but I think it's because of subdomain stuff, right?
It's
Just
tricky
not
because
a
of web hosts. Like, I've tried to
yeah,
create servers that allow people to create their own websites on, and you want to
yeah,
give them a subdomain. So it'd be like or james.frank.com, or,
yeah,
tiffany.frank.com. And it gets weird. And so I understand why the browsers have to be that specific, and they want to keep their cache policies very specific to the subdomain.
yep.
But I'm a hacksaw from the 90s, so I prefer no dubs or any of that
There you
kind of
go.
junk on
Well,
there.
you have to pick one. Either is okay.
Yeah.
And like when you go into static, so normally how I do it is like in Cloudflare, you can just say, hey, anything that has, www, just redirect, just, chop it off basically, and it'll just do it for you automatically. In static web apps and on GitHub Pages, well, mostly static web apps, you register both of them. Because the thing is, your DNS needs to do both. Else, if someone types in www
Mhm.
dot or the other one and you haven't registered it, it just 404s, right? 401, 404s, whatever it is. It's just not found. In static web apps, you register both and then you just set one as the primary. And then it just is like, cool, we got you.
Okay.
In static or in Azure App Service, you register both of them and then they both work. Like,
Yeah.
there's not, and I think there is magical configuration. So then I spent like an hour Googling and binging around and trying to find this. I was like, you know what? And like I found articles about like maybe some old APIs or something like this. I couldn't find a good reference. So I went to GitHub Copilot and I was like, is there an API in ASP.NET Core that will like make everything www, like force it to redirect all the time? And it's like, yeah, there's this one method. It's like a redirect policy. And there's literally a method in ASP.NET Core that's like always redirect to www permanently. And you're like, dude, yeah, come on. Just saying. It's wild.
Well, there's so many of those. That's the problem. You really like got to hit dot and then just scroll through the
Scroll.
list and see everything that's
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
So
because you have the SSL redirects and all
but I
that
learned.
also.
I learned all about it. It's like
Yeah.
I would have never learned about this. Now I'm so knowledgeable because
Yeah.
I'm hacking on stuff in a while. So, but I will say this. There's a difference between like hacking on stuff like you're saying and then, hey, I'm in production code. Like I'm sure you're working on iCircuit. I
Yeah.
don't know how much you're vibing and like AI working on it and stuff like that. Like it is a little bit different. Like will say like now I'm in the code, especially feedback flow. It's a lot of code. It's a lot of stuff. And I'm really trying to push my boundaries of not writing code and just telling you what to do. And it's a little bit trickier. Like I'm providing it more context. I'm like, okay, go up. Like I updated today. And I was like, I really want to do this thing. I was like, go up these 8. I was like, here are the 8 files that you need to go do. Like, this is what
Yeah.
I want you to do. Go do it. And I did it pretty good, but it's bigger code bases, more complexity, no matter what. Right. So
Yeah, and it's I've really been taking what you've been saying as like a challenge to myself. Like I want to up my programming game and staying up to date, and that means learning how to vibe code, learning how to let the machine do as much for you as possible.
yeah.
But then, I was implementing a pretty specific feature today that I had a very specific idea of how I wanted it implemented. Plus, I knew a bunch of UI stuff that I would want to implement in the future. I'm like, am I going to write a 3-page document describing this stuff, or am I just going to sit down and code it? And today I sat down and just coded it like it was the early 2000s because it's what I'm good at. I know how to do it. I can handle it. But I do have that little James on the back of my shoulder being like, did you even try to vibe this, man? Did you did you try to let the agent do this for you? Like I am a lot more nervous about production apps and large apps vibe coding than I am with just greenfield starting from scratch kind of apps. I feel a lot safer, honestly, just starting in the greenfield. I'm like, oh, if it messes things up, it's not 15 years of development that it would be
Yeah.
messing up. I'm trying to see what year it is. Yeah, 15 years of code I've accumulated in this app that I'm scared to death of it breaking or not fully understanding and all those bits because, hundreds of thousands of lines of code. But yeah, so I'm unfortunately for myself, I'm a little split between these two worlds right now. Like, I think I was an early adopter of AI, but it's funny that at the same time, I'm a little hesitant to just go all in on it and just,
Yeah.
if there's a new feature, to just sit there and talk to it instead of, think it through myself and implement it. I think it's all the edge cases I think about because in
Yeah.
my head, I'm thinking about all the different ways it's going to need to be able to do this. It's going to need to do that. And like, I can think much more quickly than I can speak and type.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I just boil it around in my head. I get it figured out in my head. And then sitting down and coding, it's kind of the relaxing, easy part. Coding for me is easy. It's the designing part in my head that takes time.
Yeah, I bet if you sat down, like for iCircuit, for example, like for every component that you have in, like the widget, like the circuit widget, I bet if you had a
That's what
prompt
they're
file,
called.
which is like, yeah, a widget, circuit widget, if you had a prompt file that was like new circuit widget dot prompt dot
Mm,
md, you could outline, here's how I create it. And then you would pass in a variable, which is like, go create widget W or ESP25. And
yeah.
then it would like know about that because it knows about the internet. And then it could go implement how you want it. So you're kind of doing a feature at a time. I'll say this much. What has changed for me working as I got further along on Bingo-O-Matic, now I'm on day 4 of the app, which I've now officially released into the wild. But for feedback flow, which like real people are using and I'm using, I am doing a lot more code review. I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like actively like doing a lot of code review things. But the funny part is actually, I recently, this is the most hilarious part, is like get AI like in this world like do some crazy stuff. So I did some changes the other day and I was testing it and I deployed, I committed the code, put it in, pushed it out to production. And I went to the website and I'm like, I would type in a URL. This is like a social analysis tool. And I typed in a URL, like a video, and it would just return mock data. It was like dummy data. And I was like, what is going on? What happened? I was like, did it change like some
Scary.
bit, some flag, something else? No, no. What happened was I was testing locally and I had the flag on. I didn't turn it off, which usually shouldn't be a problem if I had actually set that variable ever in my online environment variables in Azure. So I was like,
Ever.
oh, I should probably have the environment variable in Azure be like, use mock data false. So like, no matter what I change it to locally, it actually doesn't matter. I'm like, and that's a me problem. That's not an AI problem. So I was like, oops, my bad. Because I changed that from false to true. And I never updated
Well,
and it just magically worked. I was like, so funny.
it's all that little polish. Like we always joke, you're 80% done with the app, and then you just have 80% more to go. It's all those little things, like getting your PWA to work and notifying the user that they have to hit the refresh button. That's the same as implementing good store kit functionality in your app so that you can actually get paid for your app. You spend all this time writing the app, and they're like, oh, geez, I need to actually charge for this and make some money.
Yeah.
Or if you're doing SaaS, then it's setting up a commerce account and getting Stripe and all those things to work. Those are the not fun parts, but you still have to do them. It's almost like writing the app's the easy fun part. The deployment and getting paid and making sure the security's set up, making sure all your SSL certs and everything. I think
It's a
that will be
little
the next front. the next frontier for these AIs. Like,
Yeah.
turns out coding's easy. um, it's the deployment and getting an app actually to 100% that's difficult.
Yeah, I would say I spent the most time just like fighting with CSS. And then also it wasn't just fighting with CSS. It's like, okay, I'm fighting with like position and hiding things and tweaking things. It's like that little massaging at the end. Like I will say I spent a lot of time. I was using like nav links or whatever, which is the default in
Hmm.
Blazor. And like it was having an impossible time to do it. So I was like, don't use nav links,
Oh,
just use a refs or whatever. And I
just
was like,
a
cool.
ref that
And
puppy. Yeah.
and everything worked fine. I was like, perfect. But then I spent a lot of time on I spent the most time on the wheel. I have this wheel that spins,
It's nice.
doing a wheel that spins with zooms and centering is like nearly impossible. It's not very good, and I disable it on mobile because it does not work. But even like this grid, I had like a grid, like moving all over the place. It I had a heck of a time telling it exactly what I wanted it to do and the animations and all this stuff. And like I got it. But I spent a
Hmm.
lot of time just like going there. But at the same time, I learned a lot about different like words that it really likes and other words that it didn't. But something that was really fascinating that I learned, I'm just going to talk about things I learned about how the internet works, is that
Okay.
you know, because the first thing was this, is that I was like, hey, I'm really interested in I'm really interested in storing data, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like in my feedback flow app, I just store it in the local storage, so it's like key value. That's it,
Classic.
right? Key value,
Easy
key value.
peasy.
Did you
Yeah.
know there's a whole database called
I was wondering.
IndexedDB?
They keep threatening to remove it. All the browsers are like, we don't want to support this thing. It's just SQLite under the hood. They all just use SQLite. But yeah, IndexedDB has been around forever. Isn't it hilarious? There's SQLite baked into every website.
It's
Anyone
right
can
in
use
there.
it. Most websites actually do. Like a lot of websites use it. Um, it's hilarious because there were when it came out, I was so excited. I'm like, oh my god, there's a whole database in here, and they have whole tooling around it too, so you can do lots of fun, fancy stuff.
Yeah.
And then they kept threatening to remove it, and I was like, please don't remove it. It's so cool. And because of those threats, probably 10 years ago, I've been like too afraid to actually use it, so I tend to use local storage for everything. But that's fantastic. I'm glad you discovered it. Yeah, IndexedDB just sitting there
IndexedDB.
ready for you. Yeah.
It's ready for. So I use both of them. I use the local storage for like my settings, and then I use the database for like all the bingo sets that you create, and it just like does it. And I just it's like astonishing. And I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, how cool is this? Is that because the first thing I did was I was like, I would like to use a database in this a Blazor Blazor WebAssembly app, and I search for like again search all over the internet, and everyone wants to use EF Core and they want to do all this stuff. And I was like, I just like
Hmm.
simple data. Like I just want simple data. I even looked like, could I
Yeah.
use SQLite-net in it? Like I assume maybe I could. I have no idea. Um,
There are versions you could get
okay.
the memory based one working, but
Mm,
file persistence is difficult in WebAssembly.
yeah. So
They
I
end up
was like,
using IndexedDB under the hood.
index DB. So like legitimately some like I read some article, I was like index DB and I was like, cool, can you do index DB? And I was like, yeah, I can write that JavaScript for you and then create the C# binding for it. I was like, nice. So and then I
It's
learned all about it. I was like, well, it's literally just SQLite just sitting there inside your browser, ready to roll.
yeah.
So cool.
It still has the same problem as local storage, which frustrates me that like if I'm using Safari and then I switch to Chrome, it's all different databases. If I
Yeah.
switch over to my iPhone, it's a different database. So it doesn't handle any of the syncing for you. In
Yeah.
that way, it feels very old fashioned. But I feel like that's up to the browsers should be doing a better job, or the operating system should be doing a better job of actually merging all this data together. But
Yeah.
it's a little bit gross to me as a developer that like the client software I use is holding the data. Therefore, if I switch clients, I lose all my data. And do I even trust the clients to maintain that data? Because like they don't really surface. It's there. You can dig into the developer menus and dig through everything. You can find this stuff, but
Yeah.
they don't surface it at the good UI level, at the top level UI level.
No.
And most users don't understand how to use it, and there's no syncing support for it. So it does feel a little bit primitive. It feels like going back to like early versions of iOS, where if you had
Yeah.
two different devices, you had two different data sets. I think that's one reason I don't use it. But and that's why you do still go through the misery of having server back data and talking to a server. But gosh, it would be such a trivial problem for it because they're all using
Yeah.
SQLite. Why don't the browser people just get together and cooperate in the sake of user data? Just can we have some
Yeah.
cooperation someday, please?
I'm logged in. I'm logged in. Like, let's just do this thing. Well, and that was
Yeah.
the other thing I was thinking next too, is I was like, okay, well, I guess I have to implement login mechanism. And then I gotta have
Yeah.
them like back up a thing. And then you could log in, you could download. And I was like, oh, like
The
no,
last
like
80%. Yeah.
I could do it. But then I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. And it's all happening. I will say this though. We talked on the last before the last podcast. I did get the PDF generation working.
Good.
It's all happening. I'm very proud about it. So just
You're
saying.
generating a PDF on the Blazor WebAssembly side, and then it's bubbling up. So is that a C# library or a JavaScript library generating it?
JavaScript,
Do you know?
baby.
Okay.
JavaScript.
It's wild. Like you even have to ask now because who knows, that code can run in so many different places. And so
Exactly.
are you running all this on a static web server? Like the web server itself, is it executing any code or is it just a static server?
Azure Static Web Apps. Just hanging out.
Great. Love it.
Just chilling. Yep.
Fantastic. Yeah.
No code. No code to beat. It's all free, baby.
Look, so I think we sung the praises of the web throughout this whole podcast.
Did
But I
we?
do want to say, scrolling in VS Code in VR is still terrible. So there's still benefits to real apps. I don't want Microsoft to get the wrong impression here. Please still port VS Code to Vision OS. Please, for me, just for me.
Those are Frank.
Because I think real native apps still have a lot of advantages,
Yeah.
mostly around scrolling than web apps. And I, I feel like there's still quite a place for really real apps right now.
Yeah.
I think it's a great time to be a web developer. It's amazing what you can get working on the web, and it works very smoothly. Again, I was amazed I got my Spectrogram app working in the browser. But as an app developer, I still think there's a good place for apps and all these OSs.
I totally agree because like literally after I put this out, I was like, oh, the only thing I want to do now is like create a real native app.
Create an app.
Yeah, that's all I want to do.
Shove a Maui
Because
wrapper around it, and yeah, you're good to go.
it would solve so many other problems around not just a Blazor app, but I was thinking like could I actually like re-implement it as like a native app,
Right.
only because like everything would work a little bit better in all instances for me as a developer for maintainability, but then also like the data sync stuff, the login stuff, like the cloud storage stuff, like it all just kind of work, you know what I mean? And that would be really
Yeah.
nice. So anyways, that's a random podcast of bits and pieces
I
that we're
think we just
working
talked
on.
about what we're working on. That's the best part. And we're just letting
That's what
people know we still like writing code.
I love writing code. That's the name of the game. All right. Well, that is going to do it for this week's episode. So until next time, I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.